Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass.
And what's it gonna do?
It doesn't matter how you're doing. Woo! Wheeling, dealing, limousine right, jet flying.
Can you dig it, sucker?
Would you please shut the hell up?
You don't know what hard times are, Daddy.
The cream will rise to the top, oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Look at the human rumble.
What up? Welcome to episode 129 of Keep The Kayfabe. I'm Mike, sitting here with my boys, ready to talk some wrestling. We're on a very special on-location episode, broadcasting to you here at Crusherfest down in South Milwaukee. Keep The Kayfabe was invited to talk to some legends on this beautiful Saturday, and it's going on all weekend. We won't be here tomorrow, but that's okay because Matt actually had an awesome opportunity to talk to some awesome wrestlers. But with Crusherfest, it's all about honoring the Crusher. Peggy just did a phenomenal job with all the logistics, getting quality small business in, beer vendors, food trucks. It's such a great thing for the community and the city where the Crusher actually made his name. So it's a great honor. People have been signing a banner to get the Crusher into the Hall of Fame, and there's a lot of signatures. So I bet with all this energy and effort that everybody's putting in, I think we'll see him. It's a really, really fun day. We couldn't have gotten better weather, eh, Matt?
We definitely could not have. It's just an absolutely beautiful day here in South Milwaukee. Kind of like Mike alluded to, I do want to give a huge Keep the Kayfabe thank you to the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, Greg the Hammer Valentine, who is a longtime legend here on Keep the Kayfabe, and the legend himself, Marty Jannetty, formerly one half of the Rockers in WWE.
Most definitely. We're so honored to be able to talk to them, and they made time for us. Peggy really set us up with a great spot right by the ring where we can take in some wrestling. The crowd is real live down here. Everybody's in high spirits. Like I said, weather always helps, so people are drinking, people are eating food, bringing their dogs, bringing their families. It's a really, really great thing. You're not going to want to miss this. If you haven't gone to it ever, make a point. It's every other year. Put it on your calendar. First weekend in June. It's such a blast. So, Peggy, you did a phenomenal job. Matt, what's been your favorite part of the day down here at Crusherfest, would you say?
I mean, I think I'm a little biased, and this is going to come as no surprise, but obviously sitting down with the legends I mentioned a few minutes ago, that has to be the highlight of the day for us. We had a great crowd, great live crowd here at Crusherfest, too. Everybody was super into it. A lot of great follow-up questions. The guys were nice enough to spend a few minutes with the members of the crowd after the fact, answer any questions they had, chat with everybody. It couldn't have been any better. But we do have a live wrestling show about to start here in a few minutes, so that very well could change. The day just keeps getting better.
Most definitely. And you can hear a band going on in the distance, too. They really cover all the bases here as far as entertainment and festivities. We got to give a really special thank you to Matt's beautiful wife, Becky, who came in big with the clutch, on the phone, getting pictures of Matt interviewing these wrestlers. We're 5 minutes away from bell time here at the tent, so we might need to take it away to the interviews. Let's take a listen to Matt interviewing the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, Greg the Hammer Valentine, and Marty Jannetty.
What up? It's another week of Keep the Kayfabe. I'm Matt, sitting here with some really special guests, ready to talk some wrestling. We are live at Crusherfest here in South Milwaukee, and we've got a couple really exciting guests sitting next to me. Starting on my left, we have the legend, the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. Ted, how are you doing today?
Very good. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I mean, I've got you sitting here with us. How awesome is that, right?
Hey, that's priceless.
And to your right, Greg the Hammer Valentine. Greg, how are you?
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So I don't know if you're aware of this, and we'll probably get into this a little bit. You're actually somewhat of a legend on Keep the Kayfabe. We'll talk a little more about that later on. And then last and certainly not least, one of my favorite tag team members of all time, one half of the Rockers, WWF legend Marty Jannetty. Marty, how are you doing today?
Oh, MJ's up in the house, rocking and rolling, strutting and strolling, ready for some slamming and jamming tonight.
Nice. Well, we're going to get into that a little bit here right now. So just to get things started a little bit, speaking of slamming, all of you guys have had had legendary careers. That's no secret. We want to talk a little bit about some of the time you've spent right here in Milwaukee and some of your favorite memories from wrestling in Milwaukee. And Ted, if you don't mind, I'm going to start with you because I know there's one story we could not talk about being it's here in Milwaukee.
Well, probably you're talking about when I was when I pulled a little kid out of the crowd.
That would be the night. Yes,
asking
sir.
to dribble a basketball.
Yes, that is the story.
Of all the gimmicks that we did, that's the one I get asked about all the time. And so here's the story. I mean, obviously it was all to get the character of the $1 Million Man over. So I asked him to dribble the basketball 10 times, and he does. And I said, okay, kid, if you can do that again 15 times without missing, I'll give you $500. So he gets to 14, and I stick my foot out and make the ball bounce off my foot. Tough luck, kid. When you don't get the job done, you don't get the money. Crocodile tears ran to his, oh my gosh, couldn't have done any better. I got in the back, and all the guys were going, oh, God, that was great. That was great. I said, I'm glad you're all happy. Now find an armored vehicle to get me out of the building. These people want to kill me. Fast forward 20 years. I'm originally from Omaha, Nebraska. So I went to Omaha. I had a speaking engagement. I'm renting a car. This guy taps me on the shoulder, and I turn around, and I'm looking at his chest. I mean, like 6'6". And he said, hey, Mr. DiBiase, he says, I know who you are. I'm a big fan. I'm the manager here. Can I help you find a car? I said, sure. I said, find something that would fit both of us. He said, be happy to. He said, by the way, he says, do you remember that thing you did with the kid in the basketball? And I looked at it. It was just the expression on his face. I went, no. He says, nice to see you again. It was him.
Oh, my gosh.
It was him. He says, you're going to love this. He says, I actually went to college on a basketball scholarship. I said, see what I did for you, kid?
The irony.
But, what are the odds of me running into him like that? Wow. But that was pretty cool. But he said, yeah, he was doing very well.
Awesome. Very cool.
But yeah,
story.
That's of all the gimmicks and all the I get asked about that more than anything.
Unbelievable. Very cool story. Greg, what about you? Any really fond memories of wrestling here in Milwaukee?
I wrestled here a lot, but the one that really sticks out to me and was on Saturday night's main event, NBC, and I wrestled Ultimate Warrior.
Wow.
And Jimmy Hart was my manager, and I remember Milwaukee for that. That wasn't my best match in Milwaukee, but I had a lot of them. The finish was great, and I had the shin guard, knocked him out with it, but I still lost. But it was on a big stage, NBC Saturday night's main event, Ultimate Warrior. I think that's about the only time I ever wrestled it. But that was here in Milwaukee. And everything else in Milwaukee is a blur because all I did was drink beer here and eat cheese curds.
And soap. You ate some soap yesterday.
And I ate some soap yesterday. It was supposed to be a cheese curd.
Awesome. So Greg, I don't know if you remember this, but a story that comes to my mind that's really close to Keep the Kayfabe is, I want to say it was about a year or two ago, we actually reached out to you for a cameo, which is one of the new technologies for those of our listeners who aren't familiar with it. Cameo, yeah. Where you can actually get a personalized video from a wrestler, and we had actually reached out to you for one. And in the video, you shared a story with us about a kayfabe moment at a show where a fan got a little out of hand and you had to punch him in the face. And then some things happened. I think Linda McMahon may have gotten involved. Does this story ring any bells?
Well, I got sued, and an attorney, WWE's attorney, called me and asked me about it. I said, yeah, the guy spit in my face, and I just reacted, and I hauled up and hit him in the face. But he said I broke his jaw. I only hit him once. I must have a good punch, but
fist there.
Linda called me, and then she took care of it. She said, don't worry about it. They paid him off.
Unbelievable.
So probably took it out of my check every little bit.
So Marty,
yes,
I know you've been kind of quiet here on the end, and I want to get to you now. So obviously, I want to talk a little bit about tag team wrestling, because all you guys have been in one way or another throughout your careers involved in a tag team in one way.
Wait a minute, you didn't let me talk about Milwaukee.
If you want to talk about Milwaukee, yeah, absolutely. Do you got any good stories?
Well, I don't know if it's good or not. It was good back then, but we, all right, this is about as PG as I can get. But AWA days, when we would come here, everybody was based out of Minneapolis. I think it's about a 6.5 hour drive, if you drive correctly. But A lot of times it was a long drive all day to get here and then turn around and go right back. But anyway, so somehow we ran across the lady. At the time, we were mid-20s. And, you know, when you're 20, somebody that's 40.
You could do anything.
Yeah, and you did. So I saw you once. But we, I don't know how we found her, this lady, but it was to say how the age thing is in your mid-20s and you see somebody 40, you're like, man, she's pretty, but she's old. Yeah. Now when you get around 60, you're like, oh man, she was young. but yes, we started, she was friendly to the guys, extra friendly with some of them. And we started saying she had a house, I guess 2 or 3 bedrooms. So a bunch of us, it was usually, it started with me and Kurt Hennig, Mr. Perfect, y'all remember him. God, I'm reflecting way back, ain't I? No, I was starting to feel the age, right? Anyway, we used to stay at her place, and it was so special to us because she would like lay out the food like what we got here today. She would just lay out a spread for the guys, and you'd eat good, just slept good. She had a couple of daughters that were around 20, 21, so, you know, they were pretty. So it was always a party, and you just stayed, we started calling it the Genie Inn. Her name was Jeannie. And, but the thing was, she liked, I guess, as PG, she liked something in pay for what she did. Compensation, maybe. And like I said, she was very pretty. It was just her age got us 40. Like, that's a big deal. But, yeah, it was always the new guy in town, the newest one that came. That we'd always say, you got to pay for dinner, which meant back to the back room with her later. That was. But yeah, so because of the Genie Inn, we loved coming to Milwaukee. And then after we went to when me and Shawn split and went to WWE now, we got to come here once every. What do they come now? About once every 4 or 5 months?
Yeah, I want to say it's maybe twice a year.
Twice a year?
Yeah, something like that.
That's about what we did before, right? From Milwaukee? About 3 times a year, maybe.
I'm not sure. I can't remember.
Back then, I'm talking about when we stayed.
Yeah.
But yeah, so 3 times a year, we all of us that knew about it. And then we'd introduce the newer guys from WWE. All right, you got to pay for dinner tonight. But the Genie Inn.
Yeah, it's a crazy place here in Milwaukee, for sure.
But definitely a party place. I love it, man.
Yes, it can be exciting.
It's known for beer drinkers and hellraisers and cheese curds.
Beer drinkers, hellraisers, and cheese curds. Yes, sir. And one of those beer drinkers that we are all here today because of was the Crusher. Yeah. Obviously, he was a big hit in the AWA days. You guys have had legendary careers. Do you guys have any stories about having worked with the Crusher at any point or any experiences running into him?
You know, my only experience with Crusher was one of the other cities in wrestling that became an entity in its own was St. Louis. I mean, back in the territorial days, the top guys from all the territories somehow would make it to St. Louis, and if you got over in St. Louis, you got over, and the whole country was going to know who you were.
Yeah, and
that's how I started. But the only time that I ever saw the Crusher live was in St. Louis, and I met him there. You know, but I never had the opportunity to work with him.
Yeah, Greg, what about you? Any memories of the Crusher?
Yeah, I wrestled the Crusher. It was myself and Don Fargo against the Bruiser, Dick the Bruiser, and the Crusher in a tag team match.
Oh, wow.
That's what, didn't you do that here?
And all I did was like this, and he went like that. And, yeah.
Did y'all do that? Y'all did that here, right?
No, in Chicago, Amphitheater. That was where all the big matches were. I don't think I did it here in Milwaukee. No, I just wrestled Ultimate Warrior here, so. I was just a young kid wrestling them. I was starstruck. Crusher and Dick the Bruiser. I'm in the ring wrestling. You know, I'm a young kid.
Yeah.
24, 25.
They were older looking. I was like, yeah, they sure are popular for older guys.
Yeah.
I was thinking.
So, if Crusher was alive today, how old would he be?
90, somebody say 90?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Anybody know if the Crusher were alive today, how old he might be?
He'd be like 92.
92.
Okay, but his legacy is like, it's bigger than when he was alive.
It's still growing. Look.
Because everybody keeps up to the older wrestlers and the legends, and YouTube is a big part of that, and even WWE has a lot of good shows about the 80s legends, and not so much 50s, 60s, but they keep popping up. So
thank God, too. It gives you something to do, right? Get out of the house.
My dad was a big-time wrestler, Johnny Valentine.
Johnny Valentine, yes, legend.
Wrestled. He was part of that St. Louis clique, you know. You want to call it a clique.
Well,
Sam
my
Mushy
dad,
clique.
Iron Mike DiBiase.
Yeah, Iron Mike DiBiase.
He was one of those guys from that era.
Was he still wrestling when you got in, when you started?
No, he had passed away by then.
He passed away by then?
Yeah.
So, Greg, you mentioned a little bit about being in a tag team facing the Crusher back in the day. I want to talk a little bit about tag team wrestling, because obviously every one of you guys has been involved in a tag team in one form or another throughout your career. Right. When you go to put together a match, what are some of the big things that really stood out to you guys when you're putting together a tag team match versus like a singles?
I didn't put anything together, man. It was all ad lib. I knew if I was going over or if I was going under.
That's all.
And I didn't want to talk high spots.
Thank you, Greg.
I don't want to talk high spots. I'll forget them, and it ruins the match. And
I remember when we.
That's the dying art of professional wrestling.
Yeah.
Is that all of us, the only thing we knew when we walked in the ring was the finish.
Yeah.
This is how it's going to end tonight. Everything else was ad-libbed. Now, if you had, like, let's say maybe you had a history with whoever you were wrestling as a tag team, and this, you might say, okay, this is what the people saw the last time. Since it ended this way last time, maybe we should start tonight this way. So you might know the beginning and the end, but everything in the middle is by ear, and it's an acquired skill,
and it's almost and it's so much better that way.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Well, it is. I mean, because
spontaneous, everything is for real.
Well, and then when you plan a match out like that, if it ain't going right, the people aren't responding. You got to go with the script.
You got to shift gears and know how to do that. And it's really sad because it's like a dying art. I mean, it's hard for me to watch today's wrestling because of that. Because it's like tell me a story. You're not telling me a story. You're going out there and bouncing around the ring and going over the top rope and taking all these bumps, but none of it means anything.
That's very true. It's very true.
Yeah, so heat was definitely a big thing in any kind of match, but especially in tag team wrestling when you have more guys in the ring. There's more elements to the story you can put together. Marty, obviously, I don't want to pick on you, but I feel compelled to ask a little bit about your time in the Rockers with Shawn. Obviously, you guys had that infamous segment in WWF when Shawn kicked you through the window. I guess, how did that all come about?
The barbershop window?
Yeah.
He was an ass. He was ready to split off, which, when we came in, WWF at the time, when we came in, we been paying attention, noticing they split off the tag teams. One generally goes pretty good, and the other one, usually it was the blonde. The blonde somehow always was the one that got the push, which is understandable. And I don't mean in our case, I mean just all of them, because I guess a little more flamboyant or something, the look, is what it's all about, is appearance. But, that's part of it. But, Shawn, we talked about it, like, we'll let each other know. We don't let them come tell us, because we'll know when the product's had its run. And we agreed to it, him and I. And we accidentally, he was hard, he admits it now, he was hard to deal with back then. So I'm not saying anything that he's not already told everybody, but he was kind of an ass. They were my PG. We're still in the PG rating. He just went too far one night. It was, we were like brothers. We were so close. I mean, when you travel the roads, you drive together, you fly together, you go to bed around the same time, you get up at the same time for the flights. Yeah, you eat together, you go to the gym together. I mean, you're pretty much married. And, sometimes that can be a pain. I know when we first came in, Bret Hart was telling me, that's a big mistake, guy, big mistake. You guys, y'all going to want to, because it was different, too, when we came in. Y'all were doing, 90, 70, 50 days in a row, something like that. Long-ass tours, that's 2. Okay, I got 5 of them, I think. 3. Okay, they, for the guys, those tag team guys, we noticed they were, except for, I think, Dynamite Kid and them, they rode together, right?
Yeah.
And
me and Brutus rode together.
Yeah. Y'all did that for a while, too.
Actually, Brutus was the most mellow guy, and we were...
Who was?
Me and Brutus were together. We were together almost 3 years, and we never had a fight, hardly. Yeah, once in a while.
That's good, because I think
he was a mellow guy from Florida.
You know who was... I think it was the Rougeos. Probably now that I think about it, they were the only ones, and they're brothers. They didn't room together. But
yeah.
Greg, you mentioned Brutus. Obviously, you guys were an epic tag team. Any good fond memories of working with him that come to mind? Either mid to late '80s, any story really.
Yeah, but I grabbed him, and they wanted us to be the champions, and he was green, and I'd been a while. Been in the business like 7 years longer than him, so I was the captain and he followed, and that's what makes it beautiful, because he had a leader and a follower, but he ended up excelling at what he was doing, and we just had a great run.
What was y'all giving a name?
The Dream Team.
Yeah.
The Dream Team, yeah.
And did you do with Honky, like Shake, Rattle, and Roll?
Then I went with Honky. Yeah. That was good for me. I loved it.
I think that's when you dyed your hair black, right?
Yeah. I didn't like that part, but, I go to the beach, live in Florida, and I got the dye, and it'd be running down my chest. But it was all for good, I look back at that, and I enjoyed it. And it gave me a couple more years of good money, and it was fun, because I was always a hard-nosed wrestler, so now I got to be a showman more, so it was fun.
That means 2 chops.
And that was after everything was exposed, that wrestling, wasn't as hard. You didn't have all those fans that believed 100% of it.
You didn't have the kayfabe anymore.
Yeah.
So, no more kayfabe. And I still kayfabe, though.
Oh, yeah. Greg is 100% kayfabe.
Anybody wants to challenge me, I'll hear them right now. But I might sue you because I'm a senior citizen.
So to talk a little bit about kayfabe, Greg, you make a really good point. Back in the day, I feel like the act of separating the faces from the heels was a lot easier because we didn't live in the age of social media, and it was just harder to get that kind of information.
You can't keep anything quiet anymore if you want to keep it quiet because of these things.
Right, exactly. And for those of our listeners who are hearing this podcast, Greg was holding up his cell phone.
Right. I don't like social media, and my wife got me on Instagram, but she handles that. I don't like it.
Ted, what about you? Any thoughts on kayfabe and how the business has changed over the years?
Well, I mean, back in the day, and it was the kayfabe was everything. It was kind of like, even though we as wrestlers understood that if the general public, you watch wrestling long enough, you're going to get it.
Right.
But it's just like going, if you went to a magic show and you saw this guy make an elephant disappear. Now, he really didn't make that elephant disappear, but somehow he did it. It's the how. Right. How did he do it?
Yeah.
And that's why we thought kayfabe was important. Is that even though that they may know, let's try to keep it as secret as we can, so when they get into the story, they can get that much more into the story. And then, but when Vince came along and Vince had a new idea, he said, hey, we're sports entertainment. We're not real, so, who cares? We're still good. Yeah. And he went a whole different direction and targeted, a younger generation. with wrestling. That's when we started having the action figures and all that stuff. And then Hulk Hogan is your bigger than life hero, and I was
Crusher.
like Snidely Whiplash, the $1 Million Man and all his money. So,
Well, wrestling became Hollywood, too. Yeah.
It really is.
And they just had WrestleMania in Hollywood, L.A.
That's crazy.
It was fantastic. 2 days,
Sold out.
WrestleMania. Who
That's-
says wrestling is dead? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, it's just continuous.
And WrestleMania is a granddaddy of all of them.
and you're right. It was kind of like at the time, I had been going to Japan back and forth, and I was Stan Hansen's new partner.
Wow.
Stan and Bruiser Brody split because Bruiser Brody went to the other company. That's another story. But I remember coming home, and I don't know what hotel I was in, but I opened the door, I got the newspaper, and right there on the front it says, the WWF sets indoor attendance record, 93,000 people at the Pontiac Silverdome for WrestleMania 3. And I said right there, if I'm going to stay relative in wrestling, I'm going to have to work for that company.
Right.
And I had no idea, as things worked out, that I would end up being in the main event at WrestleMania 4.
Wow.
But it was a much smaller crowd.
Unbelievable. One of my
Pay-per-view
favorite
crowd was big, but
Well,
it
that
was
was in Atlantic City.
Atlantic City,
Yeah.
Trump's building.
And they had 2 of them in a row there.
Yeah.
That was a good time.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, we do want to be really respectful of your time. We really appreciate you guys joining us. I do have one more question for you. It's a little bit about some of the most fun and unique things you've done throughout your careers. And Ted, since you were just talking, we'll kind of keep rolling with it. I'm a huge NXT fan, which for those of our listeners and the fans here in attendance, if you don't know, NXT is the developmental brand for WWE. And in recent years, they've made a habit of bringing back some WWE legends in different roles. And Ted, I know in recent years you teamed up with Cameron Grimes as his manager. And personally, it was one of my favorite acts of the past few years in NXT. Talk a little bit about how that came to be and, what were some of your favorite memories from that?
Well, Cameron actually, in real life, invests in the stock market. He watches the stock market. And apparently, he hit it big. He hit something really big, and overnight, got a whole lot of money. And I don't know. I think it might have been Triple H who came up with the idea. He says, we got to find a way to, bring Ted into this for a couple of weeks. And so we did things like he would go out shopping, right? And so he goes in a jewelry store, and he picks up this beautiful Rolex watch. And he's looking at it, and I come walking up behind him, and I hold up this diamond bezeled watch, and I said, "Nice watch, kid, but it's not $1 million watch." And I and walk off and just leave him there, So, but anyway, it ended up going a little longer actually than they had originally anticipated, and I had a blast. It was fun to be around, of course, and I remember they said, "Well, we're going to do this thing in the ring." And L.A. Knight's going to hit you, and he says, as you fall, we'll have a couple guys there to hold you so you don't. And I said, no, you won't. I said, if I'm going to take a bump, I'm going to take a bump. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to take such a good bump, I'm going to show all these punks how to do it. So anyway, the whole thing was a lot of fun, and it was, I think it was good for everybody.
Absolutely. Greg, so we were doing a lot of research before we started doing this podcast, and we came across an old TV pilot that you did with George the Animal Steele called Somethin Fishy. I personally have not seen this. One of my co-hosts who wasn't able to be here today was able to dig this up. But for the listeners and for the people in attendance, can you share a little bit about what this was and I guess how this came to be?
Well, George called me and asked me if I wanted to do it. And we did it over by Lakeland over there in that area. And I said, sure, I'll do it. I didn't even talk about money. I was just, I wanted to do it. But it ended up I ended up making some good money with it, but it never got picked up by a network. I think it did. I got picked up on an outdoor fishing show or something, but it was fun to do, and it was funny. And you can still get it on YouTube. And good old George,
Good old George.
Yeah.
Marty, what about you?
George.
Any fun memories that come to mind of obscure things that came from wrestling, like TV pilots or?
Well, there's fight. In fact, here, let me get everybody
Yeah,
say
that's
hello.
what it was, a TV pilot, right?
Yeah.
But
MJ in the house here, otherwise known as Marty Jannetty, and the Party with Marty Hour is coming. It ain't out yet. I'm just putting it together. And so this is a good start. I got my boys on here.
Yeah.
The Hammered One.
Hammered One.
And Hall of Famers. I'm sitting close to a Hall of Fame with 2 Hall of Famers.
Here, I'll rub some of my magic dust on it.
Rub it right here.
I want to get some of that, too.
And y'all can find me on Facebook. I'll be in front of a barbershop window. That's my profile picture. Yeah, man, y'all check me out on there. But from wrestling, I mean, all these years I didn't realize I could be doing this, all the technology stuff available. And so I'm getting into it, and it's just like, thank God for wrestling, but I got something to do the rest of my life now. And thank God I get out and see these guys every so often. That keeps your sanity. Once you've done this for 30, 35, I got like 37 or 38 years in, it's kind of all it's your family, it's your extended family. And the fans are too, just like yourselves, you're my family, extended families. We used to say strangers became our family, and our family became strangers, as we were on the road 300 days a year. And, it gets like that. But so for the most part, just the kindness. There's always going to be a hater here and there, but you're giving them something to do with their life too, so it's not a bad deal.
Yeah, there's definitely haters out there, but we here at the Keep the Kayfabe love each and every one of you guys, so we really appreciate your time today. For those of us here, thank you guys so much for sitting in and listening and watching a live taping of Keep the Kayfabe.
Yeah,
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Just one more little thing, just that you were talking about it. I have just started a podcast, and it's called, Everybody's Got a Pod. And everybody's got a pod, like for podcasts, And so, I've got 3 or 4 out, but then the last thing I would have to say before I go is just remember, everybody's got a price. Yeah. The $1 Million Man.
Yeah. The best laugh ever, too. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Keep the Kayfabe and to Ted's podcast, Everybody's Got a Pod. You can find us on...
Look for mine soon.
Yes.
The Hammered One.
The Man Who Hates Social
Hammered
Media.
One.
Starring Greg Valentine.
And then the Party with Marty.
I might have to like it, though, huh?
Yeah, totally could. Excellent. Well, thanks everyone for joining. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And like we like to say here at Keep the Kayfabe, there's 3 things you got to keep in mind. Stay humble, stay hungry, and stay hard. Triple H. Thank you, guys.
Triple H? That's the Triple H. It is.
Humble, hungry, and...
Way to go, Matt. That was so enjoyable, and like I said, we can't thank Peggy enough for hooking us up with being able to talk to the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, Greg the Hammer Valentine, and Marty Jannetty. We got to give an extra special thanks to them. Wow, really good job, Matt. I'm really happy that you got to sit down with those guys. Were you nervous?
Dude, yeah, I was nervous, of course. I mean, how often is it you get to sit down with some of your childhood heroes, talk to them about some of your favorite moments in pro wrestling history, and hear what it was like from their point of view? I mean, obviously, we as fans see it when we watch wrestling, but there's always a whole other side to the story. That's what we're all about here at Keep the Kayfabe. You always have what you see on TV, but then there's the part you don't see on TV. We just heard from Ted a little bit ago. I mean, how crazy is that story about Shawn dribbling the basketball and Ted bumping into him at an airport years later?
Right.
Like, what are the odds? So, really cool time. I could not be happier right now. Obviously, I'm buzzing a little bit, just talking about it. But, yeah, what a great day here at Crusherfest.
So great. So great. Job well done. Extra special thank you to Peggy for putting on this great event. Make sure you don't miss it. Crusherfest on your calendar every other year, first weekend in June. You don't want to miss it. Thank you, Becky, for standing in again. And everybody here is in high spirits because they're keeping it these 3 things. And you know what those 3 things are, Matt?
I don't know. I don't. Can you remind me what they are?
Well, if you bought our t-shirt here, you can. Make sure you scoop up a Keep the Kayfabe t-shirt. It's printed right on the front. And that is stay humble, stay hungry, and stay hard.
Oh, Triple H. Woo!